You mentioned earlier that mental health advocacy is something that's been important to you for a long time. You've shown not only advocacy but leadership in this space at various different points throughout your career. Take us through why that is such an important piece of your life and such an important piece of who you are.
Yeah, my mother worked for a mental health organization in Brooklyn, New York when I was growing up, and we became aware, my sister and I, that there are a lot of people who deal with mental health issues, and back then they referred to it as emotionally disturbed, which I guess can be pretty accurate, but we became aware of the fact that it's a real problem. We actually had a history of it in our family, and as a result, those causes have always been dear to me. And then as I started experiencing mental health issues in the early 2000s, it became more important to me to erase the stigma around mental illness, mental health issues, and be able to talk freely about it. And that's what the Grant Halliburton Foundation does. They encourage kids in schools to check in with each other, learn the signs of distress, and talk about it. And they not only work with the kids, they work with the parents, and they work with the teachers, so that everybody is aware that it's okay, for a kid to say, I'm just not feeling right, or I'm waking up anxious, or for whatever reason, I'm sad all the time. These are things that are symptoms of depression and anxiety that people are usually, ashamed or afraid to talk about.
And you showed that leadership to me more prominently than ever in 2023 when you stepped away the way that you did from the broadcast for a portion of that season. And for that year to be the year where the Rangers go on the run that they went on, win the World Series, obviously by that point you were back in the mix and doing the broadcast again. It felt poetic that was the way that year went for you in your life. I wonder what it was like to live through that year, have the difficulty. You tell me how you would describe what early 2023 felt like and looked like for you, but then for that to be the way that it all finished just felt like a beautiful way for that year to be completed.
Yeah, the first few months of that season I describe as a black hole. You wake up every day and for no reason apparently you're just sad and you're anxious and you can't sleep. And I used talk therapy, I used medication, I used relaxation techniques and meditation, and eventually started feeling better, but I was taking a lot of medication for anxiety, and I couldn't think quickly enough, I felt, to do my job at the level that I'm used to doing it. So I decided to start the season on the sidelines, wait till I got around to what I felt was mental acuity again. And unfortunately, it took a few months, but fortunately, by the second half of the season, I was able to work, and then the Rangers went off on the World Series run. So it wound up as kind of a Cinderella story.
It really is something that every single person deals with in their own ways, but at some point throughout their lives, I think, especially I feel like at least my generation, like it is widespread. And I wonder how much, because baseball is such a mental game, right? Like these players are under such immense stress. Have you seen that take shape in some of the guys that you've covered throughout your career, and how have you, I guess, used your own experience to either relate to them or talk to them or completely not talk to them? Like, how has that happened for you over the course of your career?
It's been a huge change over the years. When I started in 1979, no player in his right mind would have admitted to anybody that he was undergoing depression or anxiety. In a lot of cases, they didn't even know what it was.
Right.
And then as the years have gone by and people started talking more freely about it, I think Zach Greinke was the first one to actually walk away from his team because he was dealing with social anxiety and depression. And that focused a lot of attention on the idea that it can't just be him. There must be others. And then others started speaking out. And then people in other sports, Michael Phelps has been, very vocal about his issues, and Simone Biles, and, the list goes on and on and on. And every team now has a mental skills coach. They have therapists for players to talk to if they need to. They have resources and they encourage the players to talk about it. Whereas 20 years ago, a player would have been, I wouldn't say he'd be blacklisted, but it would definitely be a black mark on him as teams consider whether or not this is a player that they want.